How to buy property at auctions. Hello, I'm Martin Howard. I run Key Properties UK. We buy lots of properties at auction. You will be either listening to this on my podcast, watching it on YouTube, or seeing a clip of it on social media. If you are listening, then you will get great use of this, or great usage from this. If you want to see the slides and everything that goes with this, then hop onto my YouTube channel and have a little look there. It's UK Property Investment. You'll find me. So, how to buy a property at auction. This is a book that I am writing that is a definitive guide on everything you need to know to buy properties at auction, whether you're just starting out or whether you are experienced. And I'm just going to take you through an overview of what's coming up in that book now, and is going to be some good information here. So firstly, we need to decide, what is a property auction? Well, a property auction is a place where properties are bought and sold, believe it or not. It's that simple. There's nothing daunting about it. There's nothing strange about it. There's nothing, if you're new to this type of thing, it's not seedy or a place where people are rubbing shoulders with each other and backhand deals are done and whoever knows the auctioneer gets a nod and all the rest of it. They are fair marketplaces. They are superb marketplaces. And if you've got any fears about going to an auction room or starting out down this journey, then you can put them aside, because I'm going to walk you through everything to do with buying properties at auction and why it is actually probably the best way of buying properties in today's market, or any market actually. So why would you buy a property at auction? Well, firstly, the rotten properties tend to go to auctions, and those are the ones you can make the most money out if you know what you're doing. And we refurbish a lot of properties either for rental or for sale, and so the worse they are, the better they are for us. And the worst condition properties often end up in auction because nobody wants them. And also, oftentimes they're unmortgageable because of the condition of them. No kitchen, unmortgageable. Open to the elements via doors, windows or roofs being faulty or not in a good state, unmortgageable. No bathroom, unmortgageable. There are many reasons that property can be unmortgageable, and if they are, and their owner needs to get rid of it, then it's likely to end up in an auction. So these are the ones where you can make the most money, because people will pay the least for them because they need the most work doing to them. So the first and most important thing for me is speed. I'm currently midway through the purchase of a 7-bed HMO in the middle of Swansea. We still haven't exchanged contracts on it, despite at the time of speaking being good 4 or 5 months into the sales process. I'm not going to tell you the address at this stage, but we're nearly there. At auction, however, if we had bought it under auction conditions, the legal pack would have been done before we started. We would have agreed to purchase the property, paid a 10% deposit, and then had 30 days on which to complete. That time frame creates speed because we have the 30 days in which to complete, and that allows us then to get on with it. I can probably do 4 houses purchased at auction in the time it takes me to do 1 or maybe 2, 1.5 purchased on the open market. That is money out, recycled, go again. Out, recycled, go again. It's double the speed at least. And it's double the income, that means, because time is, of course, money. I've just alluded to this, legal packs. Legal packs being done in advance save you so much time and money. If I agreed to buy a house on the open market or any property, and we agreed a price, did the deal, then I then have to go to my legal team, my lawyers, and say, I've agreed to purchase this property, can you do the searches? They will pay for the searches, and they could come back and say the thing is sat on a whopping mine, in a flood zone, in a landslip zone, has some reason why it's not a good purchase anymore. I've then had to pay my lawyer, I've had to pay for the searches, I've had to waste time, I've had to wait, had to have a bit of heartache because I do get invested in my properties, and at the end of it, can't purchase it anyway. Whereas in a auction situation, I can read the legal packs in advance, I can open up the environmental searches, I can do my childish thing where I look for the colour red, which I actually do, and find out, oh look, that bit's red because it's sat on a coal mine, or it's in a radon zone, or it's on a landslip zone, or whatever it is. So the legal packs are superb. They allow you to see in advance of things that you might have to pay money to discover later on that makes the property not worth the purchase. Knowledge. Again, this is to do with the legal packs. The legal packs give you everything before you decide to buy. The title plan, details of any disputes, where the coal mines are in the local area adjacent to it, everything you might need to know, it's all there, and it's brilliant. And of course the best one is certainty. When you've got funds to allocate onto an investment project, be it a business or a property or a development or anything, and you know that you've agreed to use that money as a tool on a certain thing, and you also know that within the next 30 days that money will then be active and in use on that property, then you can allocate that money from your bank account and say this is going to be used for that. However, if you're buying a property on the open market and you've got to wait for probate or legals or searches or slow solicitors from the other side, or even your side, or whatever it is, then the process can drag out, and that certainty isn't there, and your money's sat in the bank doing nothing, losing at this moment in time 10% a year of value. So you've got, say you're buying a property for 100 grand and the inflation rate as it stands is 10%. Well, in a year that money's worth 90 grand. You need to be deploying your money and making use of it more than ever at this moment in time, and making use of your money in properties is a great way of doing it. And to do it and do it well, buying at auction allows you that certainty to know that it will be deployed and used properly in a timely manner because of the structure of the auction process. So what are the mechanics of buying at auction? Well, firstly, there's a guide price. So I've got a picture of a wrecked house. Let's say it's worth £50,000 as the guide price. That means that the reserve price is £55,000, or it will be about 10% more than the guide. If you're working with an auctioneer or looking at an auction property that has a guide price that's a range, say it says guide £50,000 to £60,000, then the reserve price will be £55,000. Does that make sense? It's 10% above the bottom number on the guide, or midway between the two numbers that they give you. Now, you'll see properties that are listed for different price points. If they're listed low, it's to encourage bidding. If they're listed high, it's because the owner needs a certain value. Some will miss auction, some will make it, some will be bought pre-auction, some will be sold post-auction when they realise they can't get the value for it and somebody else comes in with an offer on the thing. But the guide price and the reserve price are the main things. The main mechanic of buying at an auction, though, is that once you have agreed to purchase a property, you put your hand up or done it digitally, you are contractually obliged to continue with the purchase. At that point, you have committed yourself to buying the property, and this is a good thing. When you do that, you need to pay a 10% deposit plus the auctioneer's fees and maybe a couple of other fees. You need to know what they are in advance, and we'll go through that in a little bit. So you've got your guide price, which is the price they say on the market, the reserve, which is 10% above that, or if it's a double-ended guide price, then it's halfway between them. And then once you've committed to buying a property, you have to pay a 10% deposit, and then you have 30 days, dependent on the contract. Check it, some sneak in like a 14-day or whatever. You've got 30 days to complete the purchase, but you have everything in place to do so. The fees, there can be auctioneer's fees, they can be put in the contract that you'll end up paying the seller's fees. Those are important. And then the timings, again, it's 30 days, 30 days, 30 days, almost always 30 days. And you have to make sure you've got a legal team in place, or that you've spoken to a lawyer in advance and said, if I choose to buy this property at auction when it goes up next week, and I employ you to run that, and would you be able to complete that purchase in that time frame as long as I have got the money and the wherewithal to pay for it? And you need the lawyer to say, yes, we can do that, and we will do that. Because if you haven't got that legal team in place, you're going to be in a bit of trouble. So you do need to set up in advance and make sure that you are ready for the speed. But the speed is the power. The speed is where you make the money. The speed is where you recycle the money faster. The speed is your friend. You just have to control it like you do when you're doing anything fast, driving fast, skiing fast, cycling fast. It gets you there faster, but you have to control it. So let's move on to finance. Finance is massive. If you're not buying a property in cash, then you're going to need to use finance of some sort. And if you're using finance of some sort, then be bloody careful if you are using a standard product on a auction purchase, because oftentimes they don't work at the right speed. And we've had investors that we've worked with getting real close calls with some finance companies, and I'll actually talk about that more in detail now. So you can have in finance bridging loans for properties. A bridging loan is a bridge. It's a financial bridge. If you've never used them before, they are unregulated, they are regulated, but not like a mortgage. High cost, fast money against properties. Bridging companies are wonderful. They used to be utter scoundrels. In fact, a lot of them still are utter scoundrels. 7% of all bridges fail. Guess what happens when the bridging loan fails? The bridging company gets the asset, which is probably what they wanted in the first place. So they are known for, certainly in the past, aggressive tactics and things like that. You need a good broker. A broker will talk you through different bridging finance companies. They will direct you to the right ones. They will know the ones that are slow, that are fast, that are aggressive, that are soft, that are amenable, that the ones that operate with morality more so than others. A good broker knows these things and will walk you through it. So you need a good broker. This is important. You need to get a decision in principle as well, so that the bridging company says, if you get a property within this range of money, we will finance it. You need that so that you can then go into the marketplace with that available. Your broker, I alluded to already, a really good broker is so important. It can't be the cheapest person, and you want to be paying them money, not them taking money. If you use a broker that takes money from the marketplace as their pay source, then they're going to go and recommend you to the person that pays them the most, or the company that pays them the most. This is not useful for you. What you need to do is use a broker that takes money from you up front, so that, or out of the finance, so that you know they are going to the whole market and picking the right deal for you, because you are their customer, not the finance company. I hope that makes sense. And then the most important thing is speed. You've got 30 days to complete. If you've paid a 10% deposit and you've got to find 90% of the rest of the money within 30 days, then you're going to need a finance company that works fast, operates at speed, can handle auction processes. And Lloyds Bank, HSBC, Barclays, Halifax, whatever, that do standard mortgages are not geared up for this kind of thing. They're just not. So you're going to need an expensive finance product called a bridge, and that would allow you, by the way, to buy an unmortgageable property, or one in a condition that a normal mortgage company might not finance against so easily, and do whatever works you need to be done. The bridging company will help fund the development or refurbishment as well. They're typically short-term loans. They can be anything from 3 months to 18 or even longer. And then once you've done the works, obviously the bridging company, you refinance or sell, the bridging company then takes their cut, you take your cut, and everybody's paid back, and you've made a profit if you've done your numbers right, if you've bought the right property, if you've done the development properly, if you've done everything correctly. So if you're buying a property at auction, get your financial ducks in a row first. You must get your financial ducks in a row first. Do not mess about with this. Don't go into an auction thinking you're clever, and I've seen people do this, right? Think you're clever, get yourself property cheap as chips. Say you're in one of the Welsh mining towns and you get a 50 grand property and you're going to pay 5 grand deposit. All you need to find is another 45 grand to complete the purchase, and then 20 grand's worth of works, and you're going to walk away with 100 grand's worth of property, having spent 70 grand. Are you? Are the works going to be 20 grand? Have you calculated every cost in? Do you know where you're going to get the finance from? Who's going to do it? And I've seen this so many times, people becoming unstuck, thinking that they can do these sort of things without planning, without taking steps in advance, without knowing where they stand. This is important. You must do this in the right order. Get your finance in order, then go and look at the auction market. Do not work the other way around. It's hugely dangerous. Now, I'll give you a story. There's a property in Swansea. I won't give you the address because it will give away the person, but used a bridging company, did it properly. Do you know what? I'll tell you the name of the bridging company. The name of the bridging company was Together Finance. Together do have a bit of a reputation for being brilliant in many cases, but also at the beginning of the pandemic, they pulled all their funding. Not only did they pull their funding from new products, but they pulled it from people that were ready to complete. They pulled it from my client, my investment partner, with days to go until completion. So we're about 25 days into the auction process and they pulled the money. So we've got 5 days then to find the rest of the money. Now we did it because I work with the most amazing broker, and I recommend her. Do you know what? I can name her. Her name is Alison Sanders. You can look her up online. You can say you've heard her on the Martin Howard Property Podcast or on the UK Property Investment YouTube channel or wherever it is. Ali Sanders is a fucking brilliant broker. Oh, can I swear on this? I'll beep that. Is a superb broker. She recovered that situation for that client. We extended the auction. Well, people are humans, right? So you can always speak to people. We spoke to the vendor. The vendor wasn't happy, but we got an extension. There's an extension process built into the auction contract so that if you miss, you can then extend it by 10 days before you lose your deposit and everything. We enacted that. She got a new finance company in. Under those conditions, pandemic conditions, with people withdrawing finance left, right and centre, she delivered the money for the project. She delivered it out of thin air. It was absolutely brilliant. If you need a great broker, use Ali Sanders and come to my website, keypropertiesuk.co.uk. Go to the contact us page, form, whatever. Message me and I'll put you in touch. People like that can produce finance like that under those kinds of pressures because of the contacts, the experience, the knowledge, everything, are worth their weight in gold. She is golden. Use her. I recommend her absolutely highly. Anyway, moving on. So let's do viewings. This is going to be a massive section of the book. I would have written half of it, but not this bit. So there are key things when you're viewing a property, particularly in certain areas of the country. Number one is Japanese knotweed. I love Japanese knotweed. It's my favorite. I'm going to do a whole piece on this, but Japanese knotweed is a superb thing. It puts so many buyers off, allows you to buy things, and it's not an issue. I mean, it is an issue, but it's not an issue. People pull out of them saying it's got Japanese knotweed, therefore we can't buy the property. I'm like, well, hold on a minute. Knotweed is treatable. You can't kill it, but you can put it on a 10-year insurance-backed plan, which then every single mortgage company, bar a couple, will mortgage against on the open market at full market value. Now you need to know your stuff. There are different grades of knotweed infestation. The worst grades, where it's right butted up against the property or is causing some kind of structural damage, is unmortgageable most of the time. The other grades are mortgageable dependent on how far they are from the property, and it's basically if it's 7 meters from the property but within the grounds, or more than 7 meters, it goes down a grade. And then if it's within 7 meters of the grounds of the property, say at the end of the garden, then it's another grade, and it just lowers and lowers as you go down. It has a risk profile. You can have a report done by your PCA authorized knotweed specialist, and then they deal with it. It's a 10-year plan. They spray twice in year 1, twice in year 2, once in year 3, check it year 4 and year 5, and then they go on to the insurance year 5 to 10. The insurance covers to such a level that if that pest controller, knotweed specialist, whoever it is, go bust or stops operating in business, then the insurance is transferable, and the insurance company will then pay another company to go back and rectify the problem. As soon as you can show that level of security to a mortgage company, they sign it off. It's beautiful, but you still need to know what knotweed is, where it is, how likely it is to affect the property, everything. You need to know your shit on this. And I have gone on to seminars, day-long seminars, as well as lots of other learnings just to get on top of knotweed. So I know exactly what I'm doing with knotweed, always up. Do you know what? It's one of those amazing things. It's Japanese knotweed, discovered growing out of the remnants of volcanoes where the lava had flowed over, because it digs so deep into the ground that it doesn't burn like everything else. So it comes back through. It can grow so fast in the summer. When it does, it can butt up against things, goes 2 meters underground, and butt up against things, push into pipes, push into walls, generally cause a bit of trouble. But once you're on top of it, you're on top of it. So the next thing are your services. A lot of properties don't have a gas supply. Are you going to be paying to dig up the road, pavement, whatever it is, and put a new gas supply in? Well, if you want to hit EPC level C coming up, you're probably going to need to. So you need to know if it's got a gas supply. Where's the electric coming into the building? Normally it's by the front door. Normally it's in the way of the goddamn front door, because as you open it, it bashes into the wire as it comes in. Are you going to need to mess around with that? Are you going to need to put a box in it? And if you do that, is it going to affect the front door? You need to know these things. Looking at the electric box, will you need to rewire the house? You can tell pretty much straight away with most auction properties that the house or flat or whatever it is will need a full rewire. And if you're doing a conversion into something like a HMO or flats, then how many electric points are you going to need? Where are they going to come into the building? Where are the access points? Where are the meters going to go? You need to know all of this stuff. Let's divert a little bit. I've worked with a developer for a number of years now. Well, not anymore. That guy ripped me off. He bought a house. Wanted to turn it into 3 flats. Did his own design work, which was an absolute mess because he never put any measurements on the designs. Right? And it had things like there was supposed to be steps up the side of this building, but to the top flat, but that was the alleyway down to the bottom flat, and he hadn't measured the gap, so the steps wouldn't fit in the gap with room to get down to the flat at the back. It was a proper mess from start to finish. Now on his designs, the services came in the front of the building, but the front of the building was only so wide, and we needed to get meters and services in for water, gas and electric. Now those 3 things don't cross with each other. They have to come on separate pathways, or certainly have separate boxes in separate places. We didn't have room for the electric meters at the front of the house, as well as, or the front of the building I should say, as well as the water meters and the gas meters and the electric meters. You have 3 flats, so you need 3 water meters, 3 gas meters, 3 electric meters. Well, there were 3 gas meters on the left, 3 water meters on the right of the front door in the middle, and then there was no room for the electric meters. So where are they going to go? Well, down the side apparently. Well, so we put them down the side, and then there was even less room for the steps. And because we couldn't take the steps on a platform and have them protrude out because the council wanted it all in line, that development was never going to work. And despite me asking question after question after question, how are we going to fit these steps in? What do you want me to do about this? There isn't the room. Well, go ahead and do the inside anyway. We will figure it out. There will be room. We will make it happen. We'll move that wall if we have to. No, you won't. Anyway, I digress. But you need to know, especially if you're doing a bigger project, where your services are coming in, where the room is for them, how you're going to apply them. You know, you can't put a gas box on a front door. You need to use the front door. So if you've only got a certain amount of room, it's going to have to go internally. Where is that going to go internally? Where? It's really important that you know this. I just need a cough a moment. Hello again. So yes, you have to know exactly where your services are, what they are, and where they're going. Do you have supplies of gas and electric and water? Where are they coming in the building? And if you do need to move them, extend them, make them more so, then you will need to know where they are going in or on that building and what you'll need to dig up to achieve that. Structural issues. These can make or break property projects. Structural issues are easier than you think. You don't need a structural survey most of the time. unless you really don't know what you're doing. So firstly, there are some things that will beat you no matter how good you are. They just will. A lot of time you can't get into attic spaces, and things are broken and propped up and you wouldn't believe it. This house that I've got a picture of, a roof as a background on the slides for the people listening on the podcast, it's got a bit background picture of a roof at the moment. This one had a broken purlin, which is a real major support unit of a roof. It's a structurally important item, and the previous owners had propped it up with some questionable pieces of wood, shall we say, and they had snapped over time and it was going to go at some point. We had to use bottle jacks to jack up part of the roof and replace, and eventually we ended up putting a whole new dormer in that roof. In fact, no, I'm looking at a different roof. Sorry, this is a different roof, one where we just replaced the front, but nonetheless that was an incident that did happen to us, and these things do happen. However, structural issues. Firstly, you're looking for cracks. Cracks need to be big enough to stick your finger in, your little finger. If they are, then you need to start thinking, well, what has caused that? And it's normally pretty damn obvious. It really is. So most of the time in the houses that we operate in and around South Wales, you have a main house which is 2 up, 2 down, and an extension. The extension might be 50 years old, the house might be 100 years old. It was built at a time when they weren't tying walls in, they didn't have the same building control regulations they do right now. And over time, those two buildings have essentially parted company with each other a little bit. Now, because of the height of buildings, if say the extension moves a millimeter, 2 millimeters, it tips slightly, like a millimeter. I'm talking millimeters. Then at the top, that might be an inch worth of gap, just because of the leverage of it, as it were. So something can look a lot worse than it is. You normally find, say, bay windows. You might have dips in floors there. And then, Swansea. Swansea has a fantastic history. It's been decimated during World War II. It's really interesting. If you see rows of terrace houses and then a gap, 9 times out of 10, that gap is because that house was destroyed in that war and not rebuilt. And once you know what you're looking for and you see these, you see them again and again and again. It's really, really, really interesting. And part of the whole destruction of buildings and rebuilding and lack of building quality and regulations that we have nowadays was that a lot of these houses built to a format, and the format is that the supporting wall in the middle is the stairs. So you have the stairs up against an external wall of the house, and the other side of the stairs is a supporting wall that makes the edge of the living room downstairs or something like that. Now, when you get to the top of the stairs, you turn onto a hallway that leads you to the upstairs rooms. Normally, you find with these older houses, those hallways have walls that are made of brick and blockwork, and that brick and blockwork over the living room is weighing down on absolutely nothing. And however old the house is, 80, 100, 120 years, it's just started pulling at the wood and bearing it down. That then leads you to have sloping floors. This is the second thing you need to look at when you're looking for structural issues, are the angles of the floors. If the floors are all perfectly straight, you're doing absolutely brilliant. If they're sloping and curved and things like that, then figure out what it is. And by knocking on a wall, I'll knock on this one next to me. That's solid. And you can say, well, I'll go downstairs and have a look what that's on top of. Oh, nothing. And see where the floor is bowing down, and normally be bowing down into the middle of the house, where the weight of that wall has the least, is the furthest away from the grip point on the exterior walls. So it's easily rectifiable. Knock the thing down, put a stud wall in place, square up the floor. You have no structural issues. You might find, and you will often find, that when you have those issues, what's actually happened is that as the wall has borne its weight down onto the middle of the property structure, it's actually dragged stuff with it, and it's caused cracks in exterior walls and things like that, and other issues. It's pulled flooring joists away over time. It's created other damage, but it's all come from that one cause. And as long as you know the cause, you know what to do about it, you know what it costs, and you can rectify it, then you know that the house itself isn't collapsing or anything like that, and that's absolutely brilliant. Another thing, which I'll do another piece on, is something called concrete cancer. Concrete cancer is a disease of concrete that effectively causes it to bow and warp and take on all kinds of different deformities. If you've got that, you see quite easily identifiable. Quick Google after looking at it and standing on it, and you can see what it is. Then you can know how to treat it, you know what to do. And you are going to be buying problem properties at auction. If the problem isn't the person selling, the vendor, i.e. they've died and it's on probate, or there's a family issue, or there's an ownership issue and they're arguing a toss, they stick it on auction, it's going to be a problem with the property. That's why it's an auction. Otherwise it would be on the open market. I'll come to different valuations shortly, but every property has a market value. And it has a market value based on time, 30 day, 90 day, 60 day. And the quicker the time period, the lesser the value. If you want to get maximum value for a property you're selling, just put it on the open market and wait until a buyer is available to give you the price that you want for it. If you need money quickly, or you've got an issue with it, it goes to auction. So you're going to be buying problem properties. A lot of the times they'll be seen as problems because they have issues with their structure, and you need to know what they are, what causes them, and look from there. You're looking for damp as well. Damp can come from the roof, it can come from windows, it can come from doors, it can come from render. It's up to you to figure that out. It's not rocket science, it's pretty easy. If it's coming from the bottom, you need a damp proof course. If it's coming from the top, you need to look at the roof. If it's coming from the middle / top, you need to look at the render. If it's coming from near the windows, it's coming from near the windows. Now, seaside city as Swansea is, you get salt in the air. It goes a long way, a lot further than you would think, and that starts to wear down the seals of things like rubbers and things. So seaside towns will get this a lot, and you can start getting damp ingress in places where you wouldn't expect it, and it's actually really easy to resolve. The other thing is when you've got old properties that maybe haven't been lived in for a while in British weather, the air has an element of moisture to it. We're not in a desert, and that does tend to accrue in places. Certain corners of properties can be sort of cold, and it's just the effect of air being moist and damp and accrue, and it just causing mold or something in one area because you haven't had the heating on in that property in 2, 3, 5 years. No one's lived there, there's no movement, there's nothing recycling the air, so it's just left to sort of stew and rot, and that moisture then grows mold spores and looks like a major damp issue when actually it just needs some loving. So it can just be as simple as that. So knotweed, services, structural, roof and damp issues. And then from all of that, you need to know whether it's mortgageable or not. And if you don't use mortgages, but if you are, you need to know if it's mortgageable or not. That affects the viability of the property for not just you, but other people. And holes in the roof, holes anywhere, whether they be missing or broken windows, doors, whatever. Kitchens not being existent, or kitchen is in a temporary structure. A conservatory is considered a temporary structure. So if you put your kitchen in a conservatory, your property is no longer mortgageable, and I've seen that done. I've seen people that have done that and then not be able to sell their house, so they've had to put it up for auction. So you need to know why the property is up for auction. I've alluded to it a minute ago, but 30, 60 and 90 day values are important. They're what valuers use, professional valuers use. The 30 day value is how much money you could expect to get for the property in a 30-day sales period. 60-day value is for 60 days, 90 day is for 90 days. 90 days or 180 days, depending on the valuer and the lender, is the full market value. Anything else is lesser because of the sped up time period. We want sped up time periods, so we're paying less for our properties so that we can use that money to develop them and make them into profitable properties for us. So the property could be up for auction because of speed, not for you, but for the seller. Do they have some finance they need to pay? Do they need to leave the country? Has something changed in their life? Why there might be a speed issue there. Most of the time, I much prefer the issue to be something to do with the seller, the vendor, because if the problem is with them, it's not with the property, and the minute you've bought the property, they've gone, haven't they? And then you're left with just the asset. So if there's problems not with the asset, which is the thing you end up with, then happy days. Properties can be up for sale with probate. Normally at probate, they might go to auction, or if it's left in a estate, or the open market, dependent on the family and the inheritance and how many people are trying to get their fingers in the pie at what speed. But probate is a good reason to have a property at auction. Repossession and financial issues. Oftentimes these properties don't go to auction, they go on the open market, but in a kind of auction, it's a different thing altogether. They don't do the legal packs, and they basically leave the property up on the market whilst you're going through legals. So if you don't complete quickly, someone can come and gazump you and they continue viewings. It's a bit of a difficult way to buy properties, but I'll go over that in the future as well. And finally, of course, it can be a problem with the property. If it is a problem with the property, then you know what it is, what it's going to cost to rectify, and how you're going to develop and use that situation to your advantage. Whenever there's problems, if you are the person with solutions, and they're the right solutions in business, in life, in everything, that's where you make your money. So look for problems, embrace them, because they are the thing you need in order to develop and make money out of these things. So how to check a property. Firstly, looking for the cracks and the sizes of the cracks. This is monster. Again, if there's a crack in it and you can't get your finger in it, there's some innuendo there, isn't there? For God's sake. Then don't worry about it. If you can get your little finger, or do you know what, middle finger, thumb, it's not too much difference, is it? Then start to worry and wonder more about what that crack is, where it's coming from. And also, a crack on its own is a crack. A hairline crack above a radiator is going to happen, but an actual crack, one that's deep and wide, is alone might not be a problem. With a sloping floor and some damp ingress and a bow in the roof, then it is more of a problem, and you need to pay attention to that. Do need to make sure the floors are level, as we've said before, both top and bottom floor, and if they're not level, you need to know why and figure that out. Old properties have what we call character. They're, the old cottages with the character. They're going to have creaky bits, bent bits, dipped bits, raised bits. But does that mean they're structurally unsound? No, it doesn't. It just means they're old and they've got their wrinkles. Is there water penetration? Where from? From the bottom is damp course, the top is the roof. Anywhere else, render or windows and doors. It's pretty much that easy. Where is the Japanese knotweed? If there is any. Has the owner tried to hide it? I might do a course on that myself. Yeah, lots of times people try and hide Japanese knotweed. They cut it back, but you can always see if it's there. Where are the meters? The boiler. Not only do you need to check the electrics and make sure that, almost all the time you need to rewire these things. You can see the wires coming off it. You can see if it's fuses or circuit breakers. And 9 times out of 10, you need to just do it, because as a landlord, you don't want to have to be replacing electrics in a house going forwards when somebody's living in a property. Just get it done. And then check the boiler. If it looks reasonable, you could probably keep it. If not, it needs replacing. And if you're doing that, look at the state of the radiators. They'll probably need doing too. And if you're going to do that, you may as well do the pipe work. You may as well, depending on if it's that micro bore pipe work, that tiny stuff they used to use. It's horrible stuff. So make sure you know all of these things, because when you're checking a property, if you know the cracks, the level of the floors, any water penetration, knotweed, electricity meter issues, circuit board issues, boiler issues, if you know all this in advance, then you know what money is to be made, you know what is to be spent, so therefore you know what you can bid on the property and still be in profit, and then you can go from there. But you must, and this is where people fall down, you make your money when you buy property, always. And it's when you buy that everything is enacted. It's when you buy that the process is started. It's when you buy that you have won or lost. And therefore you have to make sure that everything is in the right order, is in the right place, and you make the right decision at the right time, and without putting too much pressure. Do you know what? It's the same on every decision you make. The more money you spend, the more pressure is on it. If you're buying a car, it's more pressure than buying a banana. If you're buying a house or property, it's more pressure than buying a car. So the more money that's behind it, the more information you need, the more knowledge you need, the better you need to be to make more informed and better decisions. There's more to them as a general rule of thumb. And as a general rule of thumb, if you follow this little checklist here, cracks and sizes, level floors, water penetration, Japanese knotweed, electric, gas, services, and where they'll access if you're going to make any changes. Or say we're going to change a house into a shared house, a HMO, house of multiple occupation, and I need to put a fireproof box around the electric meter. Well, if that is next to the front door and the door's kind of opening into it, I'm going to need to move that, aren't I? That means calling out the electricity board. It means because you can't just, you know, if the supply line into a house is you're not moving that without specialist electrical help. So you just make sure you know these things in advance. And then obviously the kitchen and bathroom. So pre and post auction offers. These are where I like to do some real great business. If something is up for auction and there's not too much interest in that property, or the buyer or the vendor needs to go quickly, then they will be likely accept a pre-auction offer. Or if they need a certain amount of money to move on and they're worried they won't get it, you can put a pre-auction offer forward and they may or may not take it. Another thing that people sometimes do is they underwrite auctions. This is a whole different thing in and of itself, but basically you can say to a seller, if it doesn't sell for X, I'll buy it for Y. And so and any money that it goes for above Y, I will take a cut off. So it guarantees a certain amount of money for the seller. So you say to the seller, this property is going up for auction for £100,000. If it doesn't sell for £100,000, I will give you £90,000 for it. If it sells for £100,000 or more, for every penny it sells above £100,000, because I've underwritten that and made sure it guaranteed you £90,000, and every penny and pound above 100,000, I will take 50% of. So if it sells for 110, you will get 105, and I will get 5. You can underwrite things. This is an interesting strategy, but it's a different thing on its own, and it's a very specialist thing to do. Just letting you know that it is done and people do it. So firstly, you need a relationship with the auctioneer. They need to know you've got funds. They need to know that you're a buyer. They need to, you can develop these quite quickly, but you do need them. They need to know that you are a serious person. There are deals to be done. You can find out what the vendor wants for it, see if it fits, offer. If you start, by the way, if you start messing about with this and trying to be a clever dick, then you're going to end up in trouble. So say an auctioneer says the vendor will take 73 for this pre-auction, and you go back and say, well, I'll give them 60. Well, they're just going to not take you seriously then, aren't they? They're trying to work with you, come to a figure that's reasonable for everybody, and you're coming in and being silly. There are plenty of people in our industry that do this. They harm the reputation for the people that operate properly and sensibly. They don't get viewings that people like myself get because nobody takes them seriously because of things like that. The speed is important here. You don't have to wait till the day of the auction. You can just purchase and it's done. And by the way, you can do this post-auction as well. So at post-auction, if a property isn't sold at auction because it doesn't hit the reserve price, then you can approach the auctioneer afterwards and offer a price. Say, I was going to hit the reserve, but I was waiting for another property and I didn't get that one, so I can buy this one now, is often a conversation that you will have. Another conversation that you can have is, I wasn't going to hit the reserve on that. I haven't bought the property I wanted to, or that was the one I wanted. I will offer, I don't know, say it's a £65,000 reserve. I will offer 63 if they want it. It's missed the auction. They may as well take it. And oftentimes you can do things post-auction. I like pre and post-auction. I tend not to get involved in bidding wars if I can help it, particularly online ones. I'll come to online, offline in a moment, but yeah. So in auctions, I've alluded to this earlier, I've spoken briefly about it, but you have legal packs. The legal packs allow you to operate with speed because you can read them in advance, and they give you the certainty because you can read them in advance and you know what they say. A lot of people think that you need a lawyer to read a legal pack for you, and those people are illiterate because legal packs are just made of words and you can read them. Now there are some legal jargons, but you have Google. It is, well, at the moment it's 2023, you might be watching this in the future, whatever. We've had the internet for a long time now. We can look things up. My favourite example of legal jargon is a term called fee simple. Fee simple is a term used in old title registry documents. Quick Google of that and you find that the term means freeholder. You don't need a lawyer to know that you can use Google to figure shit out like that. Make sure you do, because reading your own legal packs, I mean, what are you going to do? Send 10 legal packs to a lawyer and spend hundreds per pack for them to read, for them you to decide you don't want any of the properties when you're 2, 3, 4 grand in because you've spent money on somebody reading legal packs for you. You need to be able to read these things. You need to become financially aware of and be able to read these things, or work with professionals that can and do read these things and know what they're looking at. And to be honest with you, having read thousands, I could probably pass some sort of legal exam on it myself. So in these things are chancel searches. These are they're legacy things from the old days of churches owning things, and they often put things on properties that means you're limited with what you can do with them in the future, and you can have insurance put in place against them coming and claiming you can't do X, Y, and Z, and you need to be able to understand and know these documents. That's its own course in and of itself, or its own video. The coal authority, certainly in the old mining places or anywhere, you need to know where the mines are, what likely they are, who they. I've worked with an agent before. He stood in a dip on a driveway and the owner said, yeah, there's a 100-foot coal shaft under there. That's why my house is sloping. I jumped off it straight away. Like, they do exist. You may not have come across it before. They do exist. They do affect properties. They are in places where you wouldn't expect them. And all you need to do is look at the report and see the diagram and go, look, there's none within 100 meters or 25 meters or whatever it is. Easy read, easy to do, and you can tick that off and move on. Auction conditions. Read these. They're in fine print, small, but in there somewhere will be some charges you have to pay that you didn't expect. Normally the seller's legal fees, which are X, Y, and Z, plus all the fees for all their searches. They'll be there, plus the auctioneer's fees, they'll be there. Read through that in details. How long have you got? I've seen auctioneers squeeze in that you've only got 14 days to complete without putting it on publicly front and center. That's a little trick. Careful. Read these conditions. They mean everything. If you've got 14 days to complete and you think you've got 30, can lead to trouble. So make sure you've read them. If a property has an EPC, it'll be in there. You'll quickly know with the EPC C level thing that's supposed to be coming up, but it won't. They can't do it. Do you know what? Let's rant about that quickly. EPC level C is supposed to be a law coming in 2024. It will never happen. A, because it's unviable, and B, because we don't want millions of homeless people. So if that becomes a law, then millions of landlords will instantly have, I don't know, 15 grand bill on average to make their properties comply with that regulation, that they have to have an energy performance level of C or above on their properties, or they cannot rent it. So that's unviable for most landlords, and they will write to their tenants saying, due to the new laws, I cannot house you anymore, please leave, off you go. And that's not going to happen. Secondly, the unviability isn't just because of the cost, it's because of the housing stock of the UK. You've got a flat in a block of flats. What are you going to do to raise that if it's got no gas to the block? And in the old mining towns, for example, that I've used so many times in this video, that are using oil supplies because they don't have gas, and the old cottages in the country villages that are made of thatched roofs with single skin walls. What are you going to do about that? Like, this is impossible given the UK housing stock. It won't happen. But anyway, the EPC is in your legal pack if it exists at all, and it will tell you a few details there, and you might know then you need to add roof insulation, things like that, the things that you can do. There'll be a condition report on the property. The environmental searches, they'll tell you there in black, in red, they color code it for you. It's like a children's book. If it's red, it's not good. If it's green, it is good. There are gradings, A, B's. You can just look at them, read the whole thing. There's tens and tens of pages. Read it. You can see histories of flooding, chances of flooding, landslip this, were there any fuel stations nearby, blah, blah, blah. It's all there. Every risk factor, even places where they've dumped waste in the past, it's all there. All of it, read it and check it. And if you're not sure about anything, say there was a flood 50 meters away 25 years ago, and it's in the report and it gives you a rating, and you're not sure about it, and you've got the amazing broker that I spoke about earlier. Ring, ring. Hello, Ellie. Yep. I've got this on my report. Can I go ahead and buy this property, or will it affect the refinance? She'll answer you straight away. Easy peasy. Local authority searches are on there. They're important. You've got your title copy, your title plan, land registry documents. Read these in full. 9 times out of 10, it's a leasehold property with a freeholder that is long gone because it's from the 1820s, and you owe him 2 shillings and 6pence a month for the last 100 years, which calculated back would mean that on today's money you owe him 37 pence. But you need to know these things, that if the freeholder's family or the turns up and says, I now own this, this is what you owe me, you need to know what that is, and you need to be you need to know if that's the case. Oftentimes these things in, like, say 1820 or whatever it is, were put on 999-year leases, and for like 6 threepence. It's worthless, means nothing, but you must know these things. You must know. Transfer documents for the property, special conditions of auctions. They can stick fees in here. Read them, read them, read them. Read them. Know what the fees are and your forms for any standard property transfer. TR1s, TR6s, TR whatevers. So let's move on to how to read a legal pack. So firstly, do not be daunted. It does have the word legal pack, and that means you think you need a lawyer, but you don't. You can read these things. There are reasons. This picture here is of the purlin that was broken at the the Mariner Street project that we did. So you can see the cracked purlin there. For the people on the podcast, sorry about this. We've got a big lump of wood going across a roof space with a big old crack in it. If that thing breaks fully, snaps down, the whole structure of the roof gives way and the whole thing will collapse, because once you take the force holding part of one section, then it will take out the rest with it. The whole thing is structured together like a pack of cards, and you start taking pieces out, gone. And the people living underneath, they could be dead from that. As property developers, investors and professionals, we have to be aware that what we are doing, if we do it in a cowboy way, can kill people, and we have to be careful of that. You can see the previous owner there has propped it up with a piece of wood at the front, which was never going to last. Anyway, that was fixed. I digress. So number 1, do not be daunted. It's a legal pack. That's all it is by name. In reality, it is paper with words on. Read the words. If you are literate, then you can do this. Number 2, be a child. Look for the colour red. Things are coloured on the more modern documents, colour coded for you to make it easy to pick out the red bits. It's lovely and wonderful. Just be a child, look for the red, and also look for the green. But the red things are the things that will be the problem things. And number 3, write down any jargon and Google it, such as the term fee simple or any other jargon that's in there. It's really easy to get information nowadays. You have access to a worldwide database of information, and you can check these things. And if you are stuck and you don't want to be spending money on these things, then you can contact me. I'll tell you. keypropertiesuk.co.uk/contact or contact-us, and or find the contact page on the menu. Fill in the form, say I've got this piece of legal jargon, and I will probably record a video, a short form video, put it on my Instagram and TikTok. In fact, yes, if you've got any jargon from a legal pack, message me. I will record a short form video on TikTok and Instagram, or for TikTok and Instagram. Will not name you. I'll say I've had this question and here's the answer, and I'll send the video back to you so you can see the answer. I'll do that free of charge. So any jargon, send it to me. I will answer it for you. Or you can pay a lawyer and pay them again and 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 again until you decide on a house and go with it, or a property. It's too expensive to do it that way. It's not viable. And then of course, seek legal advice if you're stuck. I say this for my disclaimer bit really. You do need legal advice for certain things at certain times, but you need to take steps before you get to the point of needing legal advice. If you're getting legal advice because you don't understand a term such as fee simple and you haven't bothered looking it up for yourself, you are a money waster and you are not going to win in property. Stop right now. Go back to your job. It's as simple as that. Red flags to look out for. Overselling. If an auctioneer is overselling a particular property to you, smell the danger. You've got to have a nose for property. You've got to have a nose in business. You've got to have a nose. You need to smell things. Sniff, 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 sniff. What's going on here then? Like a dog or a shark or something. You can smell it. You know it's coming. Why are they overselling this one? Is it just one that they are keen on? That they have, or is this they have something sort of they like the property, or they've spoken to you and they know that this would suit you and your project, or are there other reasons? Overselling is a key thing. Smell it, sniff it out, and then figure out whether it's a good smell or a bad smell. Lack of competition. Some of our best properties have come where there's been a lack of competition. One of my favourites, an old dentist we did, we bought it for £48,000, and there was nobody else bid. This is the days pre-pandemic. This is the days when the auction rooms were physical. Nobody else put their hand up to bid for it. Nobody. And I didn't know why. Well, I did know why, but I couldn't quite believe it. So before the auction, I rang up the dentist that was in there, and I said, I'm just thinking of buying this property that's up for auction that you're operating in. Do you want to stay in the building? And the answer was, no, we've got a purpose-built premises we've built nearby. We're going to be moving there. Okay, brilliant. So I knew that this old house that was formerly a dentist, or was going to be formerly a dentist, therefore had no use. It couldn't be a shop, couldn't be a doctor's surgery. It's not going to be a pub. It's an old end terrace house. So what could it be used for apart from a house? Now, you've got to be careful in planning for many different reasons. One of the reasons is that if you think you're going to take the last pub out of the village, or the doctor's surgery away, or the pharmacy away, or the corner shop away, and turn it into residential when the community is using that space, then you are taking the piss. It's not going to happen, and you're going to end up somewhere you don't want to be. That is not a way to operate. However, if you know that the dentist is already moving premises and that property can't be used for anything else, then you know damn well you're going to get the planning to turn it back into residential. And we did. Valuation £130,000. Absolute winner of a house. Winner. Anyway, so there's that one. There's also another one we did years back. One of our first, 2017, I think. Number 45 Clare Street in Swansea. Somebody had renovated it, couldn't sell it at the end, ran out of time on their bridging loan actually, so they had to sell it under auction conditions. So again, we go back to getting your finance right. Also, getting your finance right means getting your build teams right, because if the build takes too long and the finance runs out, or you haven't got the right finance product with the right amount of leeway in place, then you can be screwed up. See what, I've got a build that's going to take 6 weeks and I've booked 9 months worth of finance on it at the moment. Why have I booked 9 months worth of finance on it? Well, let's say the build doesn't take 6 weeks. Let's say it takes 12 weeks, because things can go wrong. They can go wrong. Builders might not turn up. Your team is only as strong as the weakest link. My last build, the plumber didn't turn up for 4 weeks. 4 weeks of the other trades unable to operate because they're waiting for him to run his goddamn pipes. Frustrating, as you can tell. These things happen. You need to be aware of them. You need to have leeway in place for things to happen. You need to. By the way, this plumber came in, did half the work, and then left, and no other plumber wanted to go in on top of his work. These things happen. So you need to be aware of these. So let's say the build takes 12 weeks. Now you're 3 months in. Now you've got to sell the property and your finance. If you'd booked 6 months finance, well, you sell the property, you get an offer, they go through their mortgage process. It might take 3 months. They might be in a chain. You're coming up to the day of the end of the finance and you're crapping your pants. Are they going to exchange and move in time, or am I going to fail on my financial product? What will that mean for the business? What will that mean for the property? So a good broker will put into account these things and maybe put you on a financial product that moves on to a different interest rate afterwards rather than defaults. You need to know these things. Your broker needs to work with you on these things. A good property investor, a good property source, a good property person like myself will extend that finance. We are booking on that project 9 months worth of finance for a 6 weeks build, because if that sale falls through, if the build costs, if the build time doubles and the first sale falls through, we've still got time to put another one through. Have we not? We've still got time to say, okay, let's put this up at auction, because the finance product will run out. We'll either need to refinance or sell in that time frame. But the most profitable thing at this moment in time would be to auction it off. In this case, this guy had to auction his property off. He didn't set up his finance correctly in the first place. And then when the problems that are inevitable and always occur arrived, he wasn't ready for them. Bought this property for £98,000, I believe. Walked the keys from one estate agent to another, or from the auctioneer to the estate agent. Put it up for, I think we sold that for 136 years ago. Bought for 98, sold for 130. Literally within a few months of each other, without doing anything. All I did one day was mowed the lawn. I mowed the lawn for some viewings myself, but that was it. That was literally it. Bought the lawnmower up from my house and everything. So lack of competition can be a good thing, but be aware of it. And the properties with no competition, normally in auctions, people are looking for projects to work on because they're builders. So if they are already done or already in a good state, or maybe have a planning issue and nobody's looked at it, then those are the ones that you might have less competition on, and those are the ones where you can take advantage of. But if there's a lack of competition, try and figure out why, because it might be something that you've missed. So take double care, extra precaution on those ones. Another thing is if there are no obvious issues. If there's no obvious issues and the property is below value or auction, then you need to look again. Look again. And these are things that are red flags, but they're not things that are wrong. They're just flags. Look. Just look. And so there are some essential things to ask the auctioneer. Number one, what are the fees? What are the auctioneer fees? Ask them directly, because however much you read documents, they'll also tell you, and it's best to get that. What are the legal fees? The seller's fees, buyer's fees, things like that, or there are all sorts of fees. And what are the other and hidden fees? And literally ask the auctioneer these questions. What are your fees? What are the buyer fees? What are the seller fees? What are the legal fees? And they say, well, the buyer fees are the auction fees, and the seller fees are this, and there's another fee that's this search, and another fee that's that search, and then you need to pay this admin charge. All in, it will cost you blah blah blah. And then ask again, are there any fees on top of that? No, that's it. Brilliant. So I know that if I buy this, I have to pay this. Yes. Great. Can you show me where that is in the documentation, please? I've read this. I think that's here. You need to do this. You need to know what money you're spending out on a property. Always. This is the most important thing. You make your money when you buy. And if you're using something like the Purple Bricks modern method of auction, which is a flipping scam, then you will find buyer's fees of £6,000 plus on there. And there are other agents that do it as well. They sell people that can't sell their properties on something called modern method of auction, thinking they'll be able to sell it because it's auctioned, and they just wang £6,000 worth of buyer's fees on top, and then the buyer is even less inclined to spend the money on the property because it costs more. In that property I'm talking about, in a £100,000 property I'm talking about a £6,000 increase for 6%. It's ludicrous. So, reason for sale. That's important. You need to know. We've alluded to that again before. We covered that, but normally it's something to do with the state of the property. That's good. Those are the things you can take advantage of. And ask the auctioneer what they think the end value will be. They're not selling you on a resale. They're going to know the market. They're going to be real with you. Estate agents, when you ask them the value of a property, will inflate it because they want to get the listing. They want to list the property with them, and they will tell you can get more for it than it's actually worth. They always will, because the other agents are doing it, and they're all in direct competition with each other. And then, of course, we'll do some more on the legals, because these are massively important, and they are important to get absolutely bang on right. And there are a couple more when you get to this stage. By the way, we've done a lot today. We've gone through viewings, working with auctioneers, legal packs, documentation, terminology, things to watch out for, red flags, where to make money. It's been a good one today. Good one. So, legals again. Does your finance company have a book of lawyers? This is important. A lot of bridging companies will insist on SRA qualified lawyers or law firm, which basically means they'll be expensive, and they've got a certain membership of a certain body which they've qualified for that allow them then to operate on behalf of that bridging company. You might have to pay the legal fees for yourself and the bridging company. In fact, you probably will if you're using bridging finance. They always make you do it. They may insist that you use a legal company from their book of lawyers, and their book of lawyers have paid money to be there and will charge you about double bubble. So you might end up doing £2,000 on something that should cost £1,000. You need to know what this is. You need to know in advance if your bridging company is charging you for this. You need to add it to your costs. It needs to be calculated in. You need to make sure that you have all of that in taken on board. Is the legal team ready to go? Have you spoken to them in advance? Do they know that you are going to be their customer very shortly? Do they know what the timeframes will be if you win the auction? Are they ready? You need to know this. You need to know this. You need to bloody well know this. It can make or break your project. It can make or break if you break the contract and lose your money. And by the way, if you break the contract and you lose the deposit, right? You lose the deposit because you paid the deposit and then you didn't complete the contract. Deposit gone. Gone. Then, if they resell the property and they sell it for less than what you paid for it or agreed to pay for it, you have to pay the difference and the legals and the interest and everything else. These are very serious contracts. Do not mess about with it. Make sure that you've done all this work in advance. I cannot iterate and reiterate and reiterate and reiterate it enough. You must have these things in place. Must. So on to these finances again. Speed is everything. Everything. Speed is everything. Hello, Mr. Lawyer. Hello. Are you ready to operate if I buy an auction property? Yes. You know that means I have to complete in 30 days, don't you? Yes. So you know that means that if you don't do your job within 30 days, I'm going to lose my deposit and I'm going to be in trouble. Yes. So are you sure you can handle this? Yes. Okay, fine. Make sure. Now, at the end of the day, I'll tell you now, I love Sam Hawking's Property Lawyers. Know Sam himself. Know some of the directors, worked with many people in that company. They will help you if you buy an auction property. They're known nationally for their work anywhere in the UK, I believe. They're certainly based in South Wales. A superb company, superb group of lawyers. They will do everything for you. If your bridging company hasn't beholden you to a certain firm, then Sam Hawking's Property Lawyers are the people that I recommend. So on the day, so firstly, when you're buying property at auction, you must know in advance what your maximum bid is. You must. Don't be playing at it. Don't be silly. You must know what your maximum bid is. Do not go beyond that. However you're feeling, you've done the numbers in advance. You are a logical, cold, calculated business person. You are not an emotional, mad, red-blooded mentalist. Well, you can be on a night out, but not at a property auction. At a property auction, you are calm, controlled, within your parameters, and you are staying within those at all times. You must, however emotionally invested you are to a property, however close you get to it, however near it seems, however it might seem that if you just put in an extra £1,000, that'll take the others out and then you'll get it, the one. If it doesn't meet your calculations, then bin it off. It has to meet your calculations. It must always meet your calculations. It must always. It's a business. You have your margins. You need to hit your margins, your profit margins. You need to have the numbers right. Do not mess about with this. When you have your number, do not exceed it, regardless of what happens, either online or in the room. So do not get emotional. I mean, you can get emotional, but just control it. You can get upset, you can get sad, you can get excited, you can get hot, you can get cold, you can, whatever, flustered, not flustered, doesn't matter. Stick to your numbers. Just stick to your numbers. Cold logic wins the day every day of the week. You must be cold, calculating, and just deal with the numbers. I have mine written down on notes on my phone. I know what properties are coming through, what I can bid on each one, and so on and so forth. I already know. So let's go a bit deeper on emotions. So firstly, money has no emotion. It has no emotion. It doesn't feel anything. And so you cannot, so written here on my slide, don't fall in love without getting engaged. And I mean, do not fall in love with a property unless you are engaged to it. You become engaged by entering a contract that you're going to be married soon. Married is when you buy the property. Engage is when you exchange contracts, having agreed to purchase the property at auction, exchange contracts and pay the 10%. Do not fall in love without getting engaged. If you're not engaged to the house, then you don't need to fall in love with it, do you? You can just look at it a few times. Basically date it. And if she wants to leave, then you need to let her go. And this is probably the title of a song, is it not? But if she wants to go with somebody that's offering her more money, then you need to let her go. And of course I'm talking about these properties. If somebody comes along with a different set of offers, don't try and judge their business, who they are, what their merits are, why the hell are they paying that for this. Just let the property go, move your thoughts onto things you can control, which is the next one that you're looking to buy. You can't control what other people do, what their plans are for properties, what their ideas are, what they think they can spend on it. You can control. Maybe that person's got emotional and overbidded. Brilliant. They're not going to be unbidding for the next one, are they? So if she wants to leave, let her go. So do not fall in love without getting engaged. If you haven't agreed a price and exchanged contracts, then don't fall in love with the property. And if she's going somewhere else, then she can go somewhere else. There are plenty of properties and the right opportunity will come for you and you will marry the right one. Success and failure. You make your money when you buy. I know I go over that and I say it repeatedly. It's just so important. You make your money when you buy. You make it when you buy. You make it when you buy. You make your goddamn money when you buy. Do you understand? You don't make it when you sell. Even though on paper you do, you don't make it during the renovations. You make it when you buy. And that is the most important thing. That's the money out, but it's the moment when you make the money. Simple as that. Experience trumps everything. Real life viewings trump everything. It's all well and good having paperwork and thinking you know things, thinking that you can get things for cheaper or better or faster, or that you're some kind of genius that can do things that other people can't or whatever. When you're experienced, you're long in the tooth, you've been in the game a number of years, it means everything. You can look at things, know the price, know the issues, you know your way around. And so if you are not experienced and you're new to this, work with people that are, because there are. I've talked about this before, right? I am thinking of potentially doing a mentorship thing, but would I? It would cost people a lot of money because I don't really. My time is valuable. I'm not going to be using it for that really. But if I did, then I know that I would be able to use a set of words in a single sentence and save somebody 30 grand, or a set of words in another sentence and make somebody 100 grand. Like, because simple words like, you can use this space for this and convert that to that and use this for that and use that for that, and then you've got this, and that's worth an extra 100 grand. Bang. When you know your way around properties, you are valuable, but you don't get to know your way around until you've done it, and you may as well not trip over all the pitfalls by using experience, using knowledge, and using leveraging other people that do know what they're doing. It's as simple as that. Experience and viewings trump everything. And emotional control is the single biggest factor in making money in property, especially when buying at auctions. Control your emotions, be cold-hearted, or cold-headed, and warm-hearted, but cold-headed. Then you will be in a much better place to make money from property, and certainly to buy correctly at auction. Certainly. So there are online and offline auctions. Most of them have moved online nowadays because they can get more people in the room. They don't need to hire rooms. It's all none of that people putting up hands and all of that stuff. It's online. You can see how many people are viewing properties. You can see how many bidders there are. You can see when they've bid. I don't know what I prefer. I like them both really, but online is easier. I'll give you that. So let's wrap this up. In conclusion, buying a property at auction is greater than buying a property on the open market. Full stop. End. You have all the information you need not to make errors. You have the legal packs in place, so you don't need to spend money on stuff to find out something isn't what it seems or is on a coal mine or something. You get certainty in terms of time frame. You get certainty in terms of what you're buying. You get speed. It means you get to use your money more quickly, more reliably, or just reliably, full stop. It means you get to operate better. It means you get to recycle your money faster. It means that you get much more profitable business overall. It means you get more properties overall. I can work at twice the pace with auction properties that I can with on-market properties. It means we can use the money twice as fast. It means we can generate twice as many rents. It means we can generate twice as many sales. It's just better all round. And when we're not wasting money on legal fee packs on things that because we already know what the issues are with properties because they're already done, and we're able to operate in this way, it just makes things better. We also get the rotters, the stinkers. If it stinks of we, then think of me is the saying that goes to the auctioneers. And these properties that are downvalued because of any issue with them, where they're stinking, they're a mess, they're broken in some way, they've got issues, be it the vendor or with the property itself, they're the ones that you can more easily make the money on. And so they tend to end up at auction with all of that certainty, with all of that speed, all of those extra good bits. So the extra costs that come with purchasing at auction that you need to be aware of more than offset the downside, the upsides, and the upsides more than offset the downsides. It's so worth it. It makes such a difference to your property business if you are purchasing at auction or under auction conditions, and that's the way to do it. So again, buying property at auction is greater than buying a property on the open market. That's my take on auction buying of properties. I hope you've enjoyed this podcast, YouTube, clips on Instagram, clips on TikTok, whatever it is you're viewing this on or listening to this on. I'll see you all again soon. And any questions at all, go to keypropertiesuk.co.uk, find the contact us page, fill in the form, email us. I think my phone number's on there. You can ring me if you want. And you'll find I'll help you with anything. And any questions about auctions, any questions about legal jargons, any questions about any of this, I'm always here to help. See you all again soon. Bye bye.